Welcome to the Fibromyalgia Podcast. I'm Tami Stackelhouse, fibromyalgia coach, author, and founder of the International Fibromyalgia Coaching Institute. The goal of this podcast is to empower you with access to the dream team of experts and coaches I've discovered are key to living the fibro life you love. From the comfort of your own home, and maybe even your pajamas, I'll help you take back control of your life and health. To help out with fibro fog, I always include full show notes and additional resources at fibromyalgiapodcast.com. Asking for and receiving help is not about being less capable. It's about using your limited energy for what matters most. Welcome to the Fibromyalgia Podcast. I'm your coach, Tami Stackelhouse, and this is episode 179. Today, we're talking about something that almost everyone with fibromyalgia struggles with from time to time: how to ask for help and how to receive it without feeling awkward, guilty, or like a burden. This episode is how to ask for and receive help more gracefully, and I want to be clear right from the start what I mean by that. When I use the word gracefully or grace, I don't mean perfectly, and I definitely don't mean politely minimizing your needs. What I mean is being able to name what you need clearly, to accept help when it's offered with kindness and with respect, and without collapsing into guilt, over-explaining, or turning it into some kind of personal failure. We do this so that we can then ask for and receive help cleanly, without it turning into some bigger emotional mess than it needs to be. Now, for many of us, this is especially hard because before fibromyalgia, we were capable. We were the doers, the caretakers, and the ones that other people relied on. So today, we are going to talk about why this gets so complicated. Then I will walk you through some very practical ways to make it easier so that you can use your limited energy for what actually matters most. Now, one thing I have seen over the last 20 years as I've been working with fibromyalgia is that those of us diagnosed, we were often the ones that were getting things done, right? We were capable, we were driven, we were, like I said, the ones other people relied on. So it's difficult for us to see ourselves in any other way, and sometimes even difficult for other people to see us as being the person who now needs help instead of being the person who was always helping others. We also have this deep, deep fear often of becoming a burden, especially to the people that we love. Right? We don't want to ask for help because we don't want to become a burden. Sometimes that comes from past experiences with other people who maybe took advantage of that. But also it's just this fear of losing our independence. And I think this is especially true for the people who are used to being the helpers, the behind the scenes helpers. And now you're in the center of the room, the spotlight is on you, and you are the one that needs help. That can be really, really hard. As people with fibromyalgia, we often learned, usually pretty early in our illness, that asking for help sometimes isn't safe. It can lead to being disappointed when people aren't willing to help, or sometimes that help comes with strings attached. I help you, now you have to help me, or now you're indebted to me because I helped you, or just being let down. Maybe people said they would help and then didn't, or said they would help and then they didn't do things well. Right? This is especially hard for people whose wellness style is the perfectionist, right? Nobody else can do this the way that you do this. And so sometimes it leads to being disappointed when we ask for help. The other thing that I think is a particular challenge for people with fibromyalgia or really any other chronic illness is that a lot of the times when people offer to help us or when we're asked for what we need, it happens at the worst possible time. It's in the middle of a flare when you're full of brain fog and your brain isn't working, when you're totally exhausted and so your brain isn't working, or you're really in pain and so your brain isn't working. People ask us, they see us really suffering and they ask us, how can I help? And the only thing we can say in those moments is nothing. There is nothing you can do to help me right now. And a lot of that is actually because our brains aren't working. And at that particular moment, we truly do not know how to answer that in a way that gives us good help. So it's not that we don't need the help, it's that we're usually asked when we are least able to figure out what would actually help. And when this keeps happening, we end up carrying more than our bodies can really handle, right? We end up doing things when we really should be resting. And that just makes fibromyalgia harder, not easier. I want to share a story with you from my childhood. I have mentioned it a few other times here on this podcast, but it is directly related to what we're talking about today. When I was a kid, we had a house fire. My parents' bedroom, everything in their bedroom was destroyed. We had about 2 feet of smoke damage around the entire house. We couldn't live in our house for a while. It was a pretty big disaster for our family. Fortunately, my mom, my sister, and I, we were all out of town, and my dad was working out on our property, eventually where we built a house, but nobody was home, which was great. Nobody was hurt, but it was a big deal. We lost all kinds of everyday items. Like I said, we had about 2 feet of smoke damage. And if you have ever had a house fire, you know the smell. There is this very distinct smell of a house fire that I can literally still smell today. This probably happened, 45 years ago or something, but I can still smell that. And everything smelled like that. Everything needed to be cleaned. It was a big disaster. My parents were both teachers. And that community, the teachers, our church, the people in the community who loved my parents and wanted to support us, they kind of all came together and did a little surprise party for us. At that party, they brought all kinds of things. People donated dressers, people donated clothes. I remember seeing a big thing of toilet paper. I mean, it was even the very basic things that we needed help with. And in the middle of all of this, I remember standing next to my mom, kind of off to the side, and she was talking to our priest at the time. And she was telling him how uncomfortable she was with all of this attention, people doing all of these things. And I will never forget what he said to her. He told her, sometimes the best gift that you can give someone is allowing them to give to you. Now, I know it was a much bigger conversation than that one sentence. I do know that there was a lot of conversation around, my parents have done a lot for the community. So this is the community's opportunity to do something for them, right? Now, a lot of us believe or struggle with the idea that asking for help means that we're failing, or asking too many times means that we're demanding too much, or we're taking instead of contributing to the people around us, or that idea again of being a burden, we failed. There's all kinds of garbage that goes through our heads when we think about receiving help. At the same time, most of us love helping the people we care about. It feels meaningful for us to be able to help someone else. It strengthens that connection with them. And for many of us, it's how we show love by taking care of someone else, by helping them in various ways. This could be as small as asking for a ride to the airport, or it could be as big as we have had a house fire and now where are we going to live and all the things, right? When we refuse the help that people are offering us, that is not being strong. That is taking away someone else's opportunity to show love. So I want you to think about this. Think about the times when you have helped someone else. And think about maybe a time where you offered to help someone else and they said no, and how that made you feel. A lot of times, helping is how we show love, right? And show people in practical ways, you are important, I care about you. So when we say no to help, it's kind of like saying, I don't need you. And I don't need you sometimes feels like you're not important to me. So think about this. I see this a lot with my clients who are moms. Moms always feel like, if I'm not doing all the things, maybe I'm not a good mom. But doing everything yourself is not the same thing as being a good parent. When our kids are allowed to help us or even asked to help us, they learn responsibility. If they are being asked to help because someone else is having a hard time, they are also learning empathy. They're learning how to care for other people. And we are also modeling asking for help, right? Which then makes it feel safer for our kids to ask us for help, right? If mom and dad ask for help, then clearly it's okay to ask for help. And so now when I'm in trouble, I can ask for help. And I don't know about you, but everything I just said there, more responsibility, more empathy, taking care of people, making it feel safe to ask for help. This is exactly what our world needs more of right now. So sometimes asking for help is not failing our kids. It's modeling how families take care of each other, how communities take care of each other. And when you are modeling having to make choices, right? I can't do all the things, but I can do this one thing. I can maybe not go to all the ball games, but I can go to this one. And when I'm here, I'm fully present. I'm all here, right? That also is modeling how they're going to have to make choices someday as an adult. And this does apply, of course, beyond parenting too. It also shows up at work, in friendships, in extended families, in communities. Any manager who has ever tried to delegate knows that it's going to take longer at first, right? When you are teaching somebody else how to do the thing, it takes longer than you just doing the thing. But when employees are empowered, right? When they're given that chance to help, it frees you up, of course, right? As a manager to do other things, but it also empowers them. It gives them greater buy-in in what's happening in their job, right? They're not just an employee who just shows up, punches the clock, goes home. They're people who show up and are invested in the outcome of what happens. You also will often find people who have ideas and skills that were being completely untapped. And you may find a secret genius that knows the answer to something that maybe you would have been struggling with. People want to contribute. They don't want to just watch from the sidelines. They want to be involved in what's going on around them. Now, if you have ever watched very young kids or had very young kids, you know they want to help. Can I carry that? Can I help? Like they're sometimes so helpful, they're unhelpful. My cats are that way. I know we're not talking about cats, but Finny wants to be right in the middle of everything and help me do whatever it is that I'm doing. They want to participate. They want to be useful, and they want to do what the adults are doing, right? Like you're modeling a behavior, they're trying to copy it. And so over time, unfortunately, many of us end up being taught that it's just faster to do things ourselves, right? When your kid is trying to help, you might be like, oh, no, I've got it. You're in the way. I can do it. And so that's what we end up being taught. And we grow up eventually thinking, asking for help or helping, like that's just being in the way, all of that. So eventually people stop offering to help, or I think more accurately, we stop knowing how to help, right? We stop knowing how to step in. Helping does come naturally to kids, but over time we're taught not to help, or that our help isn't wanted or isn't good enough. And so that then our brains flip that. Oh, well, I shouldn't ask for help either. So let's look at this through a different lens, right? We talked about the fact that giving help can be a way that people show love. And so receiving help is also a way of showing love. But help is also a pacing strategy. It's not a failure to ask for help. When you have fibromyalgia and you ask for help, it lets you conserve your energy. It lets you pace your days maybe a little bit better. It lets you choose where you're going to spend your energy and hopefully choose the things that matter most, right? It could be the difference between, oh, I need to clean the house, and having the energy to go to that ball game I mentioned, right? Your kids playing, go watch them. But if you've spent all day cleaning the house, maybe you can't. It might mean the difference between making dinner versus having the energy to be present in the evening, right? So many of us will do what we think we have to do, and then we crash. So you make dinner, you eat dinner, that's it, I'm going to bed. I think for the most part, your family would probably rather have you present. So if asking for help isn't a burden, and it's actually a way to care for ourselves, the people around us, and a way for us to pace ourselves and to conserve our energy, right? You have probably heard me talk about budgeting our energy like we budget our money. Asking for help is a way to budget that energy better. So, looking at all of that then, right? The next question is, so how do we do it? I'm sure there is at least one of you out there thinking, all right, I see what you're saying, but how? How do I get the people around me to help me? How do I make it easier for me to ask for help? So we're going to talk about some practical ways to make that asking for help a little bit easier. Number one, in order to ask for help, you have to know what you actually need. And in order to know what you need to pay attention to your body. You cannot ask for help if you don't know what would help. This is exactly what happens to us when we're in the middle of a flare and somebody says, is there anything I can do for you? And we say, no, there is not, because we don't know what would help. So I want you to ask yourself, whether you hit pause right now and think about these questions I'm about to ask, or you come back to this later, I want you to ask yourself, what is especially hard for you? What is one thing that when you do it, every time you do it, you're just wiped out, exhausted, sends you into a flare, makes you crash? And I want you to also think about what could be taken off your plate that would then free up your energy for something more important. My husband and I were actually just talking about this weekend. We talked about the fact that there are some things that we are never, ever going to do again if we can help it. And just 3 of those things, I am never going grocery shopping again if I can help it. I am never doing yard work, and I am never cleaning my house. Those are just 3 things where I have a lot better things I want to do with my time and my energy. If I'm thinking about only having a limited amount of energy in my energy budget, I don't want to spend it shopping for groceries. I want to order my groceries online and then either have them delivered or pick them up on the way home, right? There are a lot of grocery stores. It doesn't cost you a penny to order online, go park in the pickup spot, let them know you're there, and they bring it right out and stick it right in the back of your car. So what would free up important energy if it was taken off your plate? Now, you might not be able to think of anything as I ask these questions, and that's okay, because that's kind of the point, right? That we don't know, right? So when I'm asking you, you're not going to know either. What I want you to do is make a place where you can make a note. So this might be in your notes app, like start a note, things that I can have somebody else do, or places where I need help. Or, make sure you've got a little paper notebook with you if that's how you want to do it. But make sure you've got a place to make a note. And then every time you run across something, oh, that was hard. That just really drained me. Oh, God, it would be amazing if somebody else could help me with this. Jot it down. You don't necessarily have to do anything with it yet, but just start noticing where you could use some help and what things you could use help with. This becomes something that I call your book of you. This is your body's owner's manual, right? It's where we make a note of all the things that we're learning about our body, what's hard, what helps, what's important, what we need more of, what we definitely need less of, because we forget. And because when we're in the middle of that pain flare, our brains don't work. So we need it written down. This is one of the very first assignments I give all of my students, is to start making a note of these things, to start their book of you. So I would encourage you to do that too. If you want to learn more about writing your book of you, episode 47, Write Your Body's Owner's Manual, gives you a whole lot more information on this. I also cover it in my book, Take Back Your Life, in chapter 8, How Can I Help Myself? It's a big section in there, and you can grab that book for free on the podcast website. So if you go to fibromyalgiapodcast.com/179 for today's episode 179, you'll find the link to that podcast episode, Write Your Body's Owner's Manual, and also find a link where you can download a copy of that book for free. Okay, so if our first step is to learn what it is we need help with, I also want to add to this, do not do this when you're in a flare. I mean, if you're in a flare and it's obvious to you, oh yeah, I shouldn't have done that thing, make a note of it, sure. But don't try to think and plan when you are exhausted, in pain, and full of brain fog. Do this when you're clear. And if possible, ask when you're clear, right? It's so much easier to ask for help when we're not in pain, when we're not all flared up. It's easier to ask for help when we're clear. So do this, if possible, like the actual thinking and planning. Do this when you're not in a flare. And do this next thing when you're not in a flare too. And that is to have a real conversation with the people in your life. So sit down with them when you're not in crisis, when you're not in a flare. So when it's a good day, take a minute, sit down, and just talk to them. Share where you struggle. Talk about the things that drain you. Talk about why you want to stop doing some of those things and what you're trying to protect your energy for. So, for example, On the day before game day, we need to make sure that, maybe somebody else cooks dinner so that I can save my energy so I can go to the game, whatever it might be. But not just saying this is hard, but this specifically is hard. We'll talk about that in a minute. But also, I want to not do this so I can do this. There's another really great podcast episode about saying no so that you can say yes. Every single time that you say no, you're doing it so you can say yes to something else. And every single time you say yes, it means you're going to have to say no to something else. It doesn't matter if you have fibro or not. None of us can do everything. So it means making choices. So letting people know this is what I want to use that energy for. And usually it's something to do with them, maybe, or to help you be a better person that they want to be around. All of those things. So as you're sitting down and talking with them, don't forget to talk about schedules, routines. Don't forget to ask for their ideas. They will have ideas that never occurred to you. And I'll share you a couple examples in a minute here. Also, as you're doing this, you might want to go back and review episode 170, talking to loved ones, how to talk to the people you love about your fibromyalgia. That episode has a lot of really great practical tips for helping people understand fibromyalgia better. Not just understanding you need to share that part of the conversation. This is where I need help. But those other resources can be super helpful for helping people understand why fibromyalgia creates this problem in the first place. Now, I do want to prepare you for a potential thing to happen. One of my students had shared with me that when she first started working with her coach, her family thought she was getting worse. She wasn't. She was just finally being honest about how bad she actually felt. So you might even want to say that up front. Hey, you guys, you might not really realize how hard this has been for me. So as I start asking for help, just know it's something I should have been doing all along. So here are a couple examples. One of the things my mom and dad used to do, they might still do this, although it really was more important when everybody was doing all the different things. Mom and dad would have something called a date. And it was a date to coordinate their calendars, right? So it was a date to talk about dates on the calendar. So they would go out to dinner, go out to coffee, wherever. They would go somewhere where they weren't going to be bugged and sit down with their calendars and really plot out who's doing what when, do we have to coordinate dinner at a different time this day? This is particularly important for those times when maybe you have to run other people around, right? I need to take mom to this appointment. I need to take the kids to soccer practice, whatever it is, right? But coordinating those dates. You don't have to go on a date to do this, but I do recommend coordinating your calendars. I also had a client who was really struggling in the mornings in particular, just getting up, getting out of bed. Maybe you can relate to this. So many of us with fibromyalgia, we struggle with this, getting up in the morning. So she would end up not having the things that she needed. She would be late, all kinds of being more stressful in the morning. So when she sat down and talked with her boyfriend about all of this, he was like, oh, well, one of the things I can do to help, I can totally take care of breakfast. I can make the coffee in the morning. I can get your lunch ready. I can have the breakfast ready. I can get all your stuff ready. So I can put it in the car for you so that all you have to do is get up, grab your coffee, and walk out the door. This was something she never would have thought to ask him. This was something that he was like, oh, hey, this is what I can do. And it was so helpful for her. So I really just encourage you to sit down and have those conversations, to be honest, to be vulnerable, to be transparent, and to let people come up with their own solutions, because they would volunteer for things we would never think of on our own. Now, we will talk about choosing a safe person. We want to start with people who are safe to ask for help with, but we'll talk about that a little bit more in a minute. So, assuming these are safe people. All right. Next, I want you to ask cleanly and specifically. So, no drama. That's what I mean by clean, right? We're not adding drama to it. And be specific. Vague requests do not work. You can't just say, oh, can't you just help me? Because I don't know what to do. But if you can give specific requests without any drama, hey, can you put the dishes away? Hey, can you drive tonight? I'm not feeling my best. Can you drive tonight? Oh, can you handle dinner on Wednesdays? I work later that day. My brain is just toast. Can you handle dinner on Wednesdays? Specific requests are easier to understand. They're easier to say yes to, right? Because now you've turned this into a very binary yes or no, not just, can't you help me somehow? There's a million options. How do I even choose, right? But if it's, hey, can you put the dishes away? That becomes yes or no. Yes, no, maybe later, but I guess that's still a yes. It also becomes a whole lot less stressful for everyone. The other part of this, the no drama part of this, is you don't need to over-explain. So I know in a couple of my examples there, I said things like, hey, can you drive? I'm just not feeling my best today. You could leave it at that. You don't have to say, oh, my pain is through the roof and my brain isn't working. Like, you just don't need to go into all of that. You might want to explain, but not over explain. Also, don't apologize excessively. So, every couple of miles down the road, I'm so sorry I couldn't drive. That just makes everybody feel bad. That turns it into a thing. So ask for the help that you need, say thank you, and don't apologize. Because remember, helping is part of how we show love. You don't have to apologize to someone for giving them a chance to show you the love that they feel for you, right? The other thing is you don't need to justify or defend your need. Now, this will be harder with people who maybe don't understand fibromyalgia or don't understand your level of symptoms. So sometimes justifying or defending might feel like what you need to do. Just practice that. Nobody needs to know. One of the things that I teach my clients is when you are working with your calendar and you are scheduling things, nobody needs to know I'm actually sleeping at that time, right? I actually just had somebody invite me to be on their podcast at 7:50 a.m. Eastern time. I just replied and said, well, I'm in Seattle, so that's 4:50 a.m. my time, so no. We need another time. Enough said, right? But it doesn't matter if that's 4:50 a.m. or 4:50 p.m. I'm not available at that time. It doesn't matter if you are in another appointment, if you are sleeping, if you are crashed out on the couch with an ice pack, you're not available. Don't feel like you have to justify or defend what your needs are. And when you ask for help with a lot of emotional weight attached to it, the other person can feel that, and it actually makes helping you harder. Now, as we talk about this no drama, do it cleanly, if you find that this is difficult, if this is a real struggle for you, you may need help in a different way. You may need to work with a coach, work with a counselor, maybe a spiritual director if your spirituality is a piece of this equation. You may need to talk to someone else about this. This is especially true if you are carrying that fear of becoming a burden, especially because of someone that maybe you knew who was that way, or maybe because of conversations you heard, maybe in the family or friend group, other people saying, oh, she's just taking advantage of us. Maybe you need to talk through someone, or maybe even your own old experiences of someone taking advantage of you. Do your own work. up here and in your heart. Do your own work so that you can ask cleanly without that drama, without that emotional burden. Now, as we're talking about asking for help, one thing we have to talk about is the fact that we have to allow imperfection. When someone helps you, you have to let them do it their way, unless you specifically want something done in a certain way and you ask clearly for that. Otherwise, you gotta let it go. You gotta let people do it their way. So that means don't restack the dishwasher. Don't refold the towels. Don't redo whatever thing it was they did for you. Don't complain about it afterwards. Don't give advice while it's happening. Oh, you should do it the other way. I will admit that is where I definitely fall short. I try to give instruction. But this is a classic delegation thing, right? If you ask somebody to do something, you've got to let them do it their way, unless you are training somebody to do something in a specific way, in which case you need to ask clearly. So another example, if you send somebody, this is true whether it is Instacart or the shopper at Target or your husband or friend going to the grocery store for you. If you want a certain kind of peanut butter, ask for a certain kind of peanut butter. If you just say peanut butter, you can't complain about the brand. Okay. So if you want something specific, ask specifically. And if you are just asking for help, take the help that you get the way it comes. All right. I know this is particularly hard for our perfectionists. If your fibromyalgia wellness style is the perfectionist, I see you. It is hard, but it's also something you can learn how to do. All right, here's our next one. I want you to practice receiving without feeling like you have to pay it back immediately. So within you, I want you to notice that urge to apologize for asking for help or saying, I owe you, or I'll get that next time, or thank you so much for bringing me coffee. How much money do I owe you? Right? And then arguing with them when they say, no, it's my treat. Don't immediately feel like you have to pay things back. Practice saying, thank you. That really helps. Full stop. That's it. One of the things I learned, years and years and years ago, I was probably in my early 20s when I learned this, is that when somebody does something nice for you, when they pay you a compliment, anything like that, just say simply, thank you, period. Because when we say thank you and then add on to that, sometimes it diminishes the compliment. It diminishes the gift that they've given us, right? Oh, thank you, but you really didn't have to do that. It diminishes the care and the love that they've shown us. All right, the last tip for our practical tips for how to do this easier, asking for help, I should say, and receiving help. Our last practical tip is to start with the people who feel the safest. Not everyone is going to be the right person to ask, and not every moment is going to be the right moment to ask. I don't think about it so much like in our current era, but like, watching old 50s TV shows or something. The wife has got to, get the husband comfortable, get the cold beer in his hand, let him decompress from work, and then ask for help. That's still true, folks. That's like somebody asking you to help them when you're in the middle of a fibro flare. Like, that is not the moment. It doesn't mean you don't want to help. It just means right now I'm not receptive to it. So do pick your moments, absolutely, and start where and when it feels the safest and the easiest to do. So your homework assignment, if I could give you a homework assignment for this little part of our episode today, I want you to try to think of at least one person in each of your various worlds. right? So one person in your core family group at home that you could ask. One person, if you work outside the home, one person you could ask for help with at work. One person in your friend group. One person, maybe if you have big extended family gatherings, maybe one person there. Start with those one persons in all those various worlds and just build from there. So, as we sort of begin to wrap this up, I want you to reflect on everything we've talked about today. And as always, I want you to think of one thing. What is one thing that you could take from this episode? Where could you begin? Is it asking for help with something? Is it starting to figure out what you even need help with, starting your book of you? Is it scheduling a date or having a conversation with your family or with a friend? Or just thinking about one place where you could allow help instead of just deflecting it. Maybe you're somebody who is having people offer to help you and you're saying, no, 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 I got it. Where's one place that you could allow that help? And it is absolutely okay to start small. We don't have to start big. This isn't go big or go home. This is stay home and start small, maybe? So start small. One thing is enough. And then maybe when that starts to feel more comfortable, add on one more thing. I also just want to reassure you and give you a little bit of realism, right? This is a skill. You are not going to do this perfectly at first. You're not going to be perfect about asking for help. You're going to ask all wrong, the wrong people, the wrong time. It's just going to be all wrong. But that's how we learn. And you're not going to receive help perfectly either. You're going to say, oh, no, 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 I got it, when you really should be saying yes. Or you're going to say things like, oh, thank you so much. You really don't have to do that. I'm so sorry, right? But we got to practice. It is a skill that you're learning, and it's not going to happen perfectly at first. The other thing is that the people around us are going to need time to adjust their expectations, especially if they are used to you being the very capable, the doer, the caretaker. Remember what I said about the student who said, my family actually thinks I got worse, and it's just because she got honest. So give people time to adjust their expectations. And again, remember, use those things that I shared in episode 170 on how to talk to the people that you care about your fibromyalgia. There's a lot of really great tools in there that can help people understand a little bit better. One last reminder, separate out explaining, right? This is what fibromyalgia is like. This is how I need help. This is how fibromyalgia affects me. Helping people understand your fibromyalgia, your symptoms, keep that separate from asking for help. When we ask for help, we want it to be as simple as possible. Can you empty the dishwasher? Period. Done. And of course, saying thank you. And please. But we don't need to do the explaining at that same time. So keep your explaining separate from asking for help. And just remember, when things go wrong, and they will, you're just learning something new. I love the quote from Martha Beck, who, by the way, does have fibromyalgia. She said, if something is worth doing, it's worth doing badly. And I think it's such a great quote. Maybe write that down, stick it somewhere where you can see it. If something is worth doing, it's worth doing badly, because the only way we get good at doing stuff is by doing it wrong first. Now, before I wrap up today, I do want to share our listener shout out from this week. And this comes from Sabina in Germany. She is one of our students who graduated in our last Stories of Hope event. And I think this fits today's conversation perfectly. She said, even though I am currently feeling worse rather than better, I no longer feel helpless, and have lots of ideas about what I can do in the coming months to feel better. She went on to say, maybe I was too optimistic in the beginning or not really being honest with myself. Maybe I'm not really worse. Maybe I'm just realizing more and more what my situation really is. What Sabina just shared there is exactly what we are aiming for. We are not pretending that things are easy, right? We are not attacking or shaming ourselves when things are hard, but just simply having clarity and having the support to know what to try next, what to do next. And if that's where you are right now, clearer, maybe a little bit more honest, and still figuring it out, you are doing this exactly right. This is how we do it. This is the way. And don't forget that quote from Martha Beck, right? She has fibromyalgia. If something is worth doing, it is worth doing badly. So remember, the most important thing isn't that we do it right. The most important thing is simply that we start. Now, in our next episode, I am going to be answering a question sent in by a listener. It is our next Ask the Coach episode. And that question is, how do I know my fibromyalgia is improving? So if you have ever wondered whether your efforts are actually paying off, especially sometimes when we're still having flares, we're still having bad days, how do we know that we're improving? Our next episode is going to help you recognize those signs, the signs of real improvement, even when that progress is slow or uneven or feels like one step forward and 3 steps back. We are going to talk about that in our next episode. I'll see you back here next time. And that wraps up another episode of the Fibromyalgia Podcast. I'm your coach, Tami Stackelhouse. For daily doses of hope, inspiration, and practical advice, come hang out with me on Facebook. Visit facebook.com/fibrocoach to find my personal coaching page and connect with me directly. To find the show notes, additional resources, or to schedule a consultation with me or one of my coaches, visit fibromyalgiapodcast.com.